I was Deputy President of the National Union of Students and intended to become an MP. And I was then interviewed on Southern Television in Southampton, having done a meeting at what was called King Alfred's College of Education, now Winchester University, and was offered a job. Having performed as an interviewee, was basically asked, did I want to become an interviewer? And I said no, discussed it with my family, who all said I was mad. And so I then said, okay, fine, let's give it a go for 6 months. And that was 30-odd years ago. So I was with Southern TV, local regional television, for 3 years. I was an industrial correspondent with ITN for 5 years during the 1980s. And I then became a newscaster. I left for about 10 years when I didn't get the top job at News at 10, and worked again in local television news for London. And I did a range of other programmes like Missing and Police Camera Action and stuff like that. And then when the second Gulf War happened, I went back to ITN, initially on the news channel and the overnight service, and then ended up back presenting the evening news. And now I do the evening news occasionally and mainly the lunchtime news.
So what you feel that the landscape, how much it's changed from when you first started to what it is now?
The change is almost unimaginable. When I started, there were 3 TV channels. There was no Sky, there was no CNN, there was no rolling news. I won't talk about papers and radio because that's a different thing, and I'm not an expert in those fields. We worked on film, so we had to stop an hour at least before transmission to go back and process the film and cut it on a Steenbeck and so on and so forth. And then, leaping right forward to today, everything's digital. Outside broadcasts are the size of a briefcase. We can go live from wherever you want, left, right and centre. So technologically, it's been utterly revolutionary and in a relatively short period of time. The other thing that has happened, and it's partly what I'll be talking about tonight, is apart from there being more choice in mainstream news, and so you've got things like Channel 4 came along at the beginning of the 80s, and Channel 4 News was a brand new product. You've got Sky, BBC Rolling News, CNN and all of those. You've also got social media. And a lot of people, particularly undergraduate age groups, I know there are some older undergraduates as well, but the average age, late teens, early 20s, are increasingly consuming their news, their information, on social media, looking things up on websites, rolling news services and so on. And I think that the Appointment to View bulletin, steeped in impartiality and balance and strong research and reliable, recognisable correspondence, people that you know and trust, is under real pressure. Because it's a marketplace pressure and it's about an audience. So are we right to stick with what we're trying to do at the moment and say, if you want an impartial, balanced view of things, whether it's economics, politics, or whatever it might be, you'll get it on the BBC, you'll get it on ITV. If you want to know what's just a hunch, then go to Twitter, go to social media. And if you sometimes want to risk it being wrong and then corrected later on, then rolling news might be occasionally the thing for you. So it's really to see where we are. I'm kind of taking stock of my own industry, as it were, and trying to recognise what some of the challenges are and what the response may or may not be. But I'm very, very keen as well to hear what the audience think about it, because they're the ones ultimately who decide it all.
Yeah, so do you feel that having the rolling news coverage as well affects sort of issues of how trustworthy people perceive the news to be? So whether they're getting it from the BBC, just like you said, at set intervals, or the rolling news, do you think it's affecting how much people trust what they hear on the news?
I don't think there is a trust issue with BBC rolling news, because I think people will still recognise that at the very heart of the BBC's brand is trustworthiness and impartiality and balance. There's a lot of nonsense is written about the BBC being, terribly biased, and when the Tories are in power, they're all a bunch of Reds under the beds, and when Labour are in power, then they're ghastly little Tory toy boy. That kind of nonsense is taught. I think it's an entirely trustworthy organisation. The danger with rolling news, whether it's the Beeb or Sky or CNN, is by definition, something breaks, you try and check it quickly, you're in a competitive marketplace, and you might get it slightly wrong. And the cruelest thing is never wrong for long, because you then address it and change it. We wouldn't do that in an Appointment to View bulletin, because we've got more time, we check, double check, quadruple check, and so on and so forth. But on social media, there isn't even the checking. People will bung stuff out there, and an extreme example of that is Lord McAlpine, Alastair McAlpine, who for a period of time was judged on social media, allegedly, to be a paedophile. Nothing could have proved further from the truth. And in the end, he got rather a lot of money from rather a lot of people, but it was there floating around for quite some time. So there are those challenges as well. As I say, I don't think the BBC suffers from it, but I think social media is almost an open goal.
Yeah, so what do you think the future of journalism is?
I hope it's healthy. Journalism, by definition, is a record of what has happened that day, du jour journalism. And people will always want to know what's been going on, whether it's their football results or when interest rates are going to go up or down, or why a poor child died and the NHS allegedly let the family down and so on. There's a vast appetite. People love local news as well, regional news, get huge audiences for the local stuff as well. So long as that is there, and I can't see any reason at all why it would change, there will be an appetite for journalism. The real issue is what type of journalism. And I did a talk at another university yesterday, and I asked a group of about 100 of them how many of them had watched an appointment to view bulletin, lunchtime news, tea time, or 10, and 2 of them had watched an appointment to view bulletin. I then asked how many of them had gone on to the internet to look something up or find out what was happening in some area, and virtually all of them had done. That's the challenge that we face.